Why this millionaire's son crying at 3 a.m. shocked everyone, the heartbreaking truth revealed. The clock struck 3. An eerie silence gripped the mansion. But then a gut-wrenching sob shattered the stillness. Inside, the opulent rooms, draped in gold and silk, felt like a gilded cage. Everyone assumed that being born into wealth meant having it all. Yet, there was Jacob, the millionaire's son, crumpled on the floor, tears streaming down his face as if he wore his heart on his sleeve. Underneath that refined exterior, a storm was brewing, swirling with unresolved questions and what-ifs. His phone buzzed incessantly next to him, but it was an annoyance, a reminder of a world so far removed from his overwhelming despair. The muted light from the chandelier cast shadows on his tear-streaked cheeks. With every heavy breath, he fought a suffocating wave of loneliness. How could someone surrounded by luxury feel so utterly lost? Could all the money in the world erase that painful emptiness? And then it hit him: he was carrying a secret, a weight so heavy it pushed him deeper into despair. Any share of hope dimmed the moment he recalled that ominous evening. The party? It was supposed to be a celebration, a testament to his father's success, but something twisted in the air, an argument, hushed whispers, and a pair of glistening eyes staring at him from across the crowded room. Who were they? What did they want? Life turned upside down in an instant. Friends amassed around him, laughter and clinking glasses drowning out the sensation in his chest. But the more they celebrated, the more Jacob felt invisible. Desperate whispers filled the corners of his mind. Why can't you be happier? Just smile. But the sparkle of wealth had dimmed. All those faces, were they genuine? Or just masks hiding their true intentions? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sobs quieted, a menacing thought slowly brewed. What exactly had he stumbled onto? What shadows lurked behind the wealth? In that moment, Jacob decided he wouldn't let his cries drown out the truth any longer. He stood up, wiping his face, and resolved to uncover the source of his agony. No more hiding. The mansion might be filled with riches, but beneath the facade lay a cold reality. What were they all hiding? And who would stop at nothing to keep him from finding out? The stillness was shattered the moment Jacob stepped back into the grand hall. The chandeliers glimmered like predatory eyes, and the air felt thick, weighted with secrets that seemed to bubble just beneath its surface. He could hear muffled laughter drifting through the closed doors. Voices that could once have comforted him now sounded hollow, taunting. Jacob's heart raced. With each tremor of doubt, he moved closer to the shadows that had haunted him since that night. Who were those glistening eyes? His mind flashed back to the party. Faces he had known forever turned into strangers, smiles morphing into masks of deceit. He needed to know more, to unearth the truth buried beneath an impenetrable layer of wealth and pretense. Clenching his fists, he made his way through the lavish corridors lined with family portraits, painted memories that felt more like chains than heirlooms. He had to confront them, his friends, his own flesh and blood. Wasn't he that what family was for? Just as he reached for the door handle to the lavish ballroom, a loud crack echoed from behind him. Startled, Jacob turned around to see a figure standing in the shadows. It was Alex, his father's trusted associate. Alex's eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and urgency that sent chills racing down Jacob's spine. Jacob, wait! He called, taking a step closer. What do you want? Jacob shot back, anger bubbling inside him. Another lecture on how to live up to my father's legacy? Or do you have another secret to drop? Alex hesitated, his lips pressing into a thin line. You have to understand, Jacob. There are things happening that you're not aware of, things that could put you in danger. Danger? The word sent a jolt through Jacob. He leaned in, curiosity piqued despite the danger rumbling in his gut. What do you mean? Just tell me. I can handle it. Have you ever thought about why your father's success seems to come with so many enemies? Alex's voice dropped to a whisper, as if the walls themselves had ears. There was a tremor in his words, an urgency that made Jacob's stomach clench. The media, the investors, they all want a piece of your father's empire, Jacob. But there's more something that isn't just business. You need to find out the truth, or you could be the next target. Jacob felt the weight of those words settle like lead in his gut. He had instinctively known there were shadows lurking, but this confirmed it. Nothing about his life was as safe or as simple as it had seemed. So what do I do? Start with the guest list from the party. Check who really was there and what they were there for. Alex's gaze flitted over Jacob's shoulder, as if someone might be listening. I'll help you, but you have to be careful. With a nod, Jacob felt a rush of adrenaline. This was no longer just about his sadness, it was about survival. As Alex retreated into the shadows, Jacob's mind raced. What secrets would he uncover? What enemies were lurking just out of sight? He faced the ballroom again, determination hardening his resolve. The party had been a celebration. Now, it felt like the starting line of a race against something unseen, something deadly. Stepping inside, Jacob's gaze darted across the room, searching faces that had once brought him comfort, now shrouded in suspicion. Feeling their eyes on him, he took a deep breath. He would unravel the tangled web, no matter the cost, but just as he moved to confront the first person, his phone surged with a new message. He froze, heart pounding. It was from an unknown number. You don't want to get involved, Jacob. Stay away from the truth. What was happening? What danger did that text imply? Jacob's hands shook slightly as he stared at the screen, dread pooling in his chest. He was in way over his head, and the shadows were closing in. The message pulsed like a beacon in Jacob's mind. He stared at the screen, fingers hovering just above it, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. What truth? Who sent this warning? The laughter and chatter from the ballroom grew distant, muffled by a rising hum in his ears. Jacob's breath quickened, an icy dread clawing at his throat. He was standing on the precipice of something monumental and terrifying that he pocketed the phone, fighting against the urge to flee. His heart hammered as he swept his gaze over the crowd. They were mingling, unaware of the tightened string of danger coiling around him. But he was aware, and that knowledge was heavy. Keeping his head up, Jacob approached the nearest cluster of partygoers. Familiar faces, coldly polite, with glimmers of something darker flashing just beneath their carefully constructed smiles. Could one of them be the reason for the threat? His resolve hardened. He had to speak to someone. Hey, Laura, he greeted, inching closer to a woman leaning against the grand piano, her laughter airy and light. She looked glamorous, dressed in an emerald gown that caught the light just right, but his stomach twisted at the sight of her. Jacob. You made it. She exclaimed, though her eyes flickered over him, scanning for something or someone beyond. It didn't take long for him to realize it was not him she was truly interested in. Yeah, he replied, trying to sound casual. Do you know if Ben is around? I need to talk to him. Ben? I think he is. She glanced over her shoulder, her voice suddenly dropping. He went outside for some fresh air. Thanks, Jacob replied, more out of instinct than gratitude. He turned sharply, feeling the weight of her puzzled gaze on his back. What was she hiding? He made his way through the throng, pushing past guests who seemed to regard him as a ghost of who he once was. The sliding door to the terrace was barely open, and Jacob stepped outside, wincing as the cool night air hit his flushed skin. The world outside was starkly different, quiet and dark under a shimmering blanket of stars. His eyes adjusted, and he saw Ben, his oldest friend, leaning against a wrought iron railing, staring out into the abyss of the night. Ben! Jacob called, his voice raw with urgency. Ben turned, surprise flickering across his face. Jacob! What's wrong? There's something going on. Something dangerous. Jacob cautiously approached, his heart in his throat. Alex mentioned enemies, and then I received this. He pulled out his phone, showing the cryptic message. Ben's features hardened as he read the screen. "You shouldn't have ignored it," he muttered, looking around furtively. "You need to leave this alone. For your own good." Jacob felt a sting of betrayal. "You think I'm just going to walk away? I don't even know what I'm up against." "Maybe that's for the best," Ben shot back quickly, tone too harsh. The edge in his voice set off alarms in Jacob's mind. "What do you mean?" The words left Jacob's mouth like a dart, piercing through the tension. Something was wrong, and he needed to understand. Just then, a loud clatter echoed from inside the ballroom. Jacob and Ben stiffened, eyes darting back towards the commotion. People were gasping in shock, their murmurs rising to a crescendo. "What's happening?" Jacob stepped away from the terrace, his instincts flaring. "Stay here," Ben warned, his voice low, but Jacob felt a magnetic pull drawing him back inside. Then, a figure stumbled through the doors, blood on their shirt, face pale and in shock. It was Laura. "Help!" she screamed, her eyes wild. He's dead." The world spun around Jacob, darkness closing in as the implications settled on him like a lead blanket. Suddenly, the truth didn't seem so far away. It was right on his doorstep, and there was no escaping it now. What had he just stepped into? As adrenaline surged through his veins, he knew one thing for certain: the shadows were no longer just specters of his imagination. They were real, and they were hungry for blood. The chaos inside the ballroom washed over Jacob like a tidal wave, twisting his insides. Laura's panicked scream reverberated in his ears. "He's dead." The words clung to the air, thick and suffocating, mixing dread with disbelief. He rushed inside, pushing past horrified guests, their faces pale like ghosts. Fear and confusion danced in the room, the laughter replaced by shaky breaths and whispers of horror. Someone was dead, someone who shouldn't be. Heart racing, Jacob fought through the huddled crowd, drawn toward Laura, who stood near the entrance, her wide eyes frantically searching for answers that wouldn't come. "Laura. Who's dead?" Jacob demanded, his voice strained against the rising tide of panic. "It's Ben. I saw him. He was lying there," she gasped, her voice trembling. Fresh tears glistened in her eyes. "In the storage room." There was so much blood Jacob's stomach dropped. "Ben. No, not Ben." The world spun as he struggled to comprehend the reality crashing down around him. "What happened?" he managed, fear twisting his throat. "I don't know. I just heard a noise, and when I went to check, I found him." Her words tumbled out like scattered beads, chaotic and desperate. He looked so broken. Every instinct screamed for him to run, to flee this nightmare, but he forced his legs to move, leading Laura toward the storage room at the back of the banquet hall. The walls felt like they were closing in, each step heavier than the last. Time stretched like taffy, and dread pooled in his gut. As they approached the room, the atmosphere thickened, suffocating. A few guests dared to peer through the small window, their faces etched with fear and morbid curiosity. Jacob shot them an angry glare. This was not a spectacle, it was murder. With a deep breath, Jacob turned the handle and pushed the door open. The scene was horrific. Ben lay sprawled on the cold floor, eyes vacant and unseeing, a dark pool of crimson soaking his white dress shirt. The vibrant, colorful life he had just shared with Jacob was extinguished, replaced by the haunting silence of death. Jacob staggered back, a lump forcing its way up his throat. This was real. His best friend gone. Why didn't I listen to him? The thought echoed in his mind, pounding against his skull. Ben had warned him. This wasn't just a party gone awry, it was a warning gone tragically wrong. What are we going to do? Laura's voice quivered, her hands trembling as she reached for him. He grabbed her wrist, anchoring himself in the wreckage. We need to call the police. Someone has to know. But even as he said it, his heart raced with the knowledge that it might not be enough. They were in over their heads, and if this was the beginning, who was next? Suddenly, the tension shattered. A voice rang out from behind them. Stop right there. Jacob turned to see a security guard, fury in his eyes, marching in their direction. What is going on? Ben's dead. Jacob yelled, panic rising in his chest. We need help. But even as he pleaded, he could see the doubt flooding the guard's face, searching for motives instead of offering comfort. Fear sharply twisted in Jacob's gut. What if they were next? What if they were being framed? As the guard pulled out his radio, Jacob felt shadows creeping closer, tightening around him. Was he really caught in a web woven by deceit and betrayal? Then, something caught his eye, a glimmer on the floor near Ben's outstretched hand. It was small, metallic, and out of place. A keychain? A clue? He moved closer, the adrenaline spiking again. What had Ben gotten involved in? And how deep did this darkness go? The search for the truth was just beginning. Jacob knelt, his breath hitching violently in his throat as he leaned closer to grasp the small, glimmering object. It was a keychain shaped like a raven, intricately designed, almost sinister, with its beady eyes staring back at him. The panic swirling in his chest morphed into a cold determination. He had to know what it meant. Laura watched him, her eyes wide with fear. What is it? She whispered, dread hanging thick in the air. I don't know yet, Jacob replied, his voice low. He pocketed the keychain, glancing back at the security guard who was still barking into his radio. It was all happening too fast. We need to find out where it came from. It could lead us to who did this. Are you sure that's a good idea? Laura's hands shook as she wrung them together. What if it's too dangerous? His resolve hardened. We can't just sit here. If we do, we'll be next. He stood up, heart hammering in his chest, and turned to the crowd. Fear and curiosity mingled in the faces surrounding them, each person hiding their own fears behind a mask of horror. Everyone. Back away from the door. The guard barked again, shoving people back with a wave of his arm. Jacob caught snippets of murmurs, whispers of accusations. Who could do such a thing? One person gasped. What if it's one of us? Jacob's blood ran cold at the thought. Friends were now suspects. The reality of their tenuous connections gnawed at him. The guard was still on the radio. We need backup, possible homicide, secure the area. The harsh tone crushed any remnants of hope that the chaos would end. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the ballroom, cutting through the tension like a knife. Jacob whipped around, pulse racing again like a drum. What was that? He breathed, the tension so thick he could almost taste it. People turned their heads, fearful eyes darting toward the sound. A pair of giggling partygoers stumbled through the doorway, thankfully oblivious to the horror inside. But in their wake, the kind of heat that should have filled the room was replaced with an icy chill. It pulled at Jacob with a sinister tug. Jacob, let us go, Laura said, fear threading her voice. No, wait, he murmured, scanning the room for any sign of Ben's enemies or anyone who might know what that keychain meant. Adrenaline drove him, but the crowd was unyielding, forming a wall that blocked his escape. When he finally turned back to Laura, she was gone. Panic clawed at his insides. Laura! Jacob shouted, frantic. Where could she have gone? He surged forward, pushing through the throngs of people who'd become mere shadows of their former selves. The air felt electric with fear, and he could feel eyes on him. He should have been looking for answers, not chasing down Laura. He spotted her at the entrance, talking intensely to a woman with sharp features. A chill went down his spine. The woman's dark hair curled over her shoulders as she gestured animatedly, whispering urgently to Laura. Jacob's gut twisted as he moved closer. Laura, come on. He called, edging toward them. But just as they turned, the security guard's eyes locked onto him, face flushed with anger. You! He shouted, striding toward Jacob. Alarm bells rang in Jacob's head as the guard stepped between him and Laura, trenching a line of protection and suspicion. What have you done? The guard accused, making Jacob's heart lurch. The noise of the party faded, the whispers grew louder around him, and all he felt was the suffocating pressure of being trapped. He glanced back at the entrance where shadows danced. Whatever was happening, it was spiraling out of control. Just then, the silence shattered as another scream ripped through the air, sending a jolt of fear deep into Jacob's core. No. Not again, he thought desperately. What now? The guard barked, tightening his grip. Jacob felt the weight of chaos closing in again, the truth wrapped in layers of darkness just out of reach. The keychain in his pocket felt heavy, as if it had its own secrets to tell. What secrets lay buried beneath the surface of this twisted night? And who would be the next victim in this unfolding nightmare? Jacob's heart thudded violently in his chest as the scream echoed around the ballroom, sending a ripple of dread through the crowd. Eyes darted, faces twisted in confusion and horror, but all he could focus on was the weight of Laura's absence. That eerie sense of isolation engulfed him. He felt like a stranger in a room full of familiar faces. What is going on? Jacob shouted to the guard, trying to keep his voice steady, but it came out cracking. We need to. The guard cut him off sharply, his eyes darting here and there. Stay back. I don't know what's happening, but it's not safe. Another scream pierced the air. The lights flickered, dimming momentarily before stabilizing, casting the crowd into an unsettling half-light. Jacob's eyes searched frantically for Laura, knowing every second wasted left her vulnerable. Suddenly, the throng of people shifted, panic igniting like a match struck on dry wood. A young man stumbled past him, face pale and ashen, eyes wild with terror. It's her. He gasped, tears streaming down his cheeks. Who? Jacob yelled, desperation clawing at him. The young man pointed to the far edge of the ballroom, but before he could offer more of an explanation, the crowd surged, pushing Jacob along with them. He struggled against the tide, adrenaline pumping through his veins like fire. Fear churned in his stomach. Was Laura going to be hurt? What if the keychain is the thing bringing this chaos? Jacob clenched it tighter in his pocket as he fought his way toward the source of the chaos. As he neared, he caught the glint of something on the floor. Shattered glass. His gut twisted. Someone had fallen. The room was closing in on him, panic rising with force. Then, he spotted her, Laura, on the ground, looking dazed, but thankfully unharmed. Relief washed over him like a tidal wave. But just as he took a step forward, a figure loomed over her. Get away from her! Jacob shouted, heart rate spiking as he recognized the tall shadow looming ominously. It was the woman Laura had been talking to. Her sharp features were twisted into a smirk, eyes glinting with something unsettling. Too late to play the hero, the woman hissed, kneeling beside Laura. These games are far darker than you know. Her voice was smooth yet full of menace, a soft caress filled with venom. Jacob's hands balled into fists. What did you do to her? The woman's expression shifted, morphing from amusement to icy anger. You really should have stayed out of this. Your curiosity may cost you everything. Jacob stepped closer, defiance fueling his courage. Back off. I want to let you hurt her. With a sudden, violent movement, the woman shoved something toward Jacob, a glint of metal within her palm. You should understand the power of the raven, she sneered, but the words were drowned out by another scream, closer now, another wave of terror crashing through the crowd. Get away from her. Jacob shouted again, but as he lunged forward, the ground beneath him shifted, chaos erupting again. People stumbled, screams became incoherent shouts, and Jacob lost sight of everything but the fear coursing through him. In that moment, with the crowd swelling and the lights flickering, he felt the keychain pressing against his side as if it had a heartbeat of its own. What did it mean? Was the power of the raven strong enough to unearth the dark secrets hidden within this nightmare? As silence fell momentarily, a dreadful realization flashed through Jacob's mind. What if this was all just the beginning? What if he was now tangled in a web that spanned far beyond what he could understand? With that unsettling thought lingering, the lights flickered again, and the crowd recoiled. A shadow moved through the room, dark and unyielding. What was coming next? And how was he going to escape this spiraling horror? Jacob's body surged forward involuntarily, eyes locked on the figure looming over Laura. Each step pumped adrenaline through his veins while the chaos erupted around him like a twisted symphony of fear. The sharp jingle of countless keychains filled the air, an eerie soundtrack to the unfolding horror. He was close enough now to see Laura's eyes widening in terror, her mouth forming words that were swallowed by the rising din. The woman's face twisted into a frightening grin, pure malice conducting a dark orchestra. "The Raven chose you, but you should have stayed away," she hissed, those words burning through the air like a jagged knife. Jacob fought to regain ground, but before he could reach them, the ground trembled again. The room felt alive, walls closing in, the flickering lights producing a strobe effect. Shadows danced, and the woman's form melted into the darkness momentarily, leaving just a lingering whisper. Was he losing his grip on reality? The keychain seemed to heat against his skin, pulsing as if it was alive. Panic twisted in his gut. Had he unwittingly invited her here with it? Was it even possible? What kind of power did it hold? "Laura!" He screamed again, but the word felt hollow. Suddenly, there was a downward crash. The woman had struck the ground near Laura, and she was gone, vanished into the chaos as if she was never there. The crowd parted like water, giving way to a swirling vortex of body and emotion. "Laura!" His voice ripped through the fog of fear while his heart raced. Chairs toppled, and glasses shattered all around him. An unbearable wave of claustrophobia crashed over him, trapping him in a whirlwind of swirling faces, panic-stricken masks frozen in horror. Then he saw her, a flash of white dress near the edge of the ballroom. Without thinking, he bolted that direction, shoving against the gnawing hands of the crowd. Each step felt like running through molasses. "Laura, please." The desperation edged his voice, panic clawing at his throat. She was there, alive, but trembling on the ground, eyes scanning frantically over the surging sea of panic. "Jacob, get out of here!" she shouted, her voice laced with terror. "It's not safe. You have to go." Before he could respond, another scream tore through the ballroom, this one primal, echoing like a howl. It stopped everyone, freezing them like deer in headlights. An electric pulse charged the air, and with clarity woven from dread, Jacob recognized that the darkness was coming back. The Raven's shadow folded over them, stretching unnaturally, curling around pillars and the pomp of extravagant decor. Suddenly, the lights died. Darkness pooled heavily, and Jacob's stomach lurched as the world was swallowed whole. He fumbled for the keychain, the metal cold in his palm. "Jacob." Laura's voice was clearer now, slices of warmth contrasting against the freezing darkness. "Stay close. We'll find a way." But out of the void came a sound, rumbling and guttural, unmistakably alive. The crowd surged again, panic-stricken bodies colliding as they all scrambled toward the exits, desperate to escape the awakening nightmare. Jacob pressed forward, shielding Laura, but fear gripped him too tightly. What if he was too late? What if the Raven's curse sought them all? The room shifted, a blast of wind swept through, stealing their breath. With it, an echo followed, sharp and unwavering: "You cannot escape the truth." As the whisper receded into silence, the feeling of dread intensified. They had drawn dangerously close to something real and terrible. But Jacob felt a flicker of resolve ignite deep within. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, for one simple truth was becoming clear: he would not run from this. If the Raven had chosen them, then they had to fight. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye, a shadow darting past. "Laura, come on." He reached out, tugging her towards the mystery that could either save them or damn them both. What lay ahead? Was it safety, or was it just another trap waiting to ensnare them? There was no telling what the darkness concealed. But one thing was certain: they were about to confront the true power of the Raven. Whatever awaited them wouldn't go down without one last chilling revelation. Jacob's heart hammered in his chest as he sprinted after the shadow. The pulsing keychain felt like a flickering heartbeat in his palm, urging him on. He tugged Laura to follow, their hands clasped in a desperate bid for survival, against the backdrop of chaos. "Where are we going?" she yelled, her voice nearly lost in the cacophony. "I don't know. Just trust me." He shouted back, fear squeezing his throat. They weaved through the throng, bodies bumping against theirs, lost in the frenzy of panic. How could this night have spiraled into madness? Memories of laughter and celebration felt like a cruel joke now. Up ahead, Jacob spotted what seemed to be a doorway shrouded in darkness. It flickered in and out of view, and with it came a hint of an escape from the turmoil that surrounded them. The raven's presence throbbed like a heavy drumbeat, a sinister reminder of the choice they never meant to make. "Jacob, please. We need to get out," Laura pleaded, her grip tightening around his fingers. He could feel her trembling. She was terrified, and it ignited a fire within him. He focused on the doorway, each step feeling like a small victory against the encroaching dread. The pair burst from the crowd, breaking into the space that seemed to breathe heavily. It was darker here, the shadows deeper, the air thick with an unshakable tension. And then, silence. The kind of silence that pricks at the nerves, making each heartbeat sound thunderous against it. The doorway closed behind them like a mouth slamming shut. "What is this place?" Laura gasped, eyes wide. "What we need to find out," Jacob said, scanning their surroundings. The room was a stark contrast to the ballroom, a small chamber, lined with dusty bookshelves filled with worn volumes, their spines cracked and discolored. The air was laden with musky nostalgia, but beneath it, something foul simmered. The whisper surged back. "You cannot escape the truth," it echoed again, swirling around them, heavier than before. "Jacob, can you hear that?" Laura's voice trembled. "Yes. And I don't like it." He stepped forward cautiously, one foot after another, each echoing in the enclosed space. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, charged with an otherworldly energy. The books on the shelves began to tremble, reverberating like a heartbeat. Shadows flickered and morphed, taking forms that looked almost familiar. The woman from the ballroom appeared in fragments, her face twisted in rage, swirling around them, blending in with the darkness. "Jacob!" Laura cried, her body tense, frozen in fear. He turned, meeting her panicked eyes. "Stay close. We'll figure this out." But before he could finish, a loud crash echoed, interrupting their exchange. Books flew off the shelves, spiraling into the air like a vortex of chaotic energy. A deep rumble reverberated through the floor, shaking them both. "What is happening?" Laura yelled, clutching his arm tighter. "It's her. The raven must be connected to this place." Jacob shouted back. Fear clawed at his chest, but determination surged forward. They could not simply stand by. "Jacob, the keychain." Laura's voice broke through their panic. "What if it can do something? What if it can protect us?" Closing his hand tighter around the keychain, Jacob felt its warmth flood through him. "Maybe it's not just a keychain," he murmured, his mind racing. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence, echoing like a wail of despair. It pierced through the room, freezing Jacob and Laura in place. "No! No! No!" Jacob shouted, realizing the source was not far off. The scream was familiar, one that chilled his very soul. It was a cry of desperation, and it was coming from the heart of the darkness. Running feet thrummed against the floor as Jacob contemplated their next move. They could either surrender to the chaos or dig deeper into the mystery. Would the keychain reveal its secrets, or had they merely stumbled into their own doom? Another shadow flickered, darting across the dim light of the room, and a new sensation clawed at Jacob's gut. What if it wasn't just a raven? What if it had a plan for them all along? "Let us find out," he said resolutely, and pulled Laura towards the heart of the shadows, ready to unveil whatever truth lay waiting in the dark. But as they ventured deeper, a chilling question loomed over them. What truth could possibly await them, and would it be one they could survive? The shadows thickened as they moved forward, the oppressive dark weaving around them like an ancient predator lying in wait. Jacob's heart raced, each thump mixing with the echo of their hurried footsteps, a chaotic symphony in the suffocating silence. He gripped the keychain tighter, convinced it was their only lifeline. "Do you think we can get out of here?" Laura whispered, her eyes wide, searching his face for reassurance. "I don't know, but we have to keep moving," he replied, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. Every instinct screamed for him to turn back, for safety lay behind them, with the chaotic crowd, and yet this unknown cavern called to him with an inexplicable promise, a truth that begged to be uncovered. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a cauldron-like object at the room's center, dark and crooked, emanating a low hum. It seemed to pulse in sync with the keychain, a deep, resonant heartbeat that felt both inviting and terrifying. Jacob had never seen anything like it. He felt a strange connection, as if the cauldron was aware of their presence. "Do you hear that?" Laura asked, her voice caught between fear and awe. It's like it's singing," Jacob replied, mesmerized. The hum grew louder, vibrating through their bones, a harmonic echo that sent a shiver down his spine. "What is it?" As he leaned closer, shadows crept and twisted out of the cauldron, forming shapes, faces from the ballroom flickering in and out, their eyes wide with terror or anger. "You should have listened," they seemed to whisper, voices layered and haunting. "Jacob, we have to go." Laura pulled at him, but he remained transfixed, curiosity battling his instincts. "What if it knows something? What if it can help us?" he murmured, searching the swirling darkness, desperate for understanding. And then, as if the cauldron had sensed his resolve, it released a deafening roar, shaking the very foundation of the room. Books flew off the shelves once more, swirling around the chamber in a frenzy of color and chaos. "Jacob!" Laura screamed, shielding her head as the storm of objects whipped around them. But beneath the noise, something caught Jacob's ear: sobs. Deep, wrenching cries that echoed from the cauldron, a painful lament that twisted his heart. "Laura, do you hear that?" He could barely make himself heard above the cacophony. "What?" she shouted back, panic rising in her tone. "Those voices, they sound familiar," he said, horror blossoming in his chest. "It's like they're pleading for help." The pictures of those tormented faces imprinted on his mind. He took a step closer, ignoring the chaos around him. The sobbing grew louder, reaching a fevered pitch that resonated in his bones. He could feel their pain, a collective sorrow wrapping around him, threatening to pull him in. "Stop!" Laura cried, yanking on his arm, but the moment of doubt was lost. Drawn by an unseen force, Jacob reached out to the cauldron, fingers outstretched, longing to touch what lay within. In that moment, the keychain erupted with light, illuminating the room momentarily like 1,000 fireflies. This wasn't just an object, it was a conduit. "Look! Jacob, it's glowing!" Laura shouted. The light twisted, forming patterns that danced around them, intertwining with the shadows, pulling fragments of memories from the past. "Can you see them?" Jacob gasped, awe mixing with fear as he saw flashes of his own face amongst the discomfort, memories of choices he wished he could forget. "Do you see what we've done?" Laura's breathing was rapid beside him, both of them caught in the realization that they had chosen this path, a path twisting deeper into their own fears made flesh. But before he could think further, the cries shifted once again. "Take me with you, help me escape." It was his own voice, racked with pain, reaching out through the veil. "No. No, no." Jacob stumbled back, terror flashing across his face. "It's trying to trap us." Just then, the cauldron erupted in a blinding light, engulfing them completely. Time twisted, distorting reality as a torrential roar swallowed them whole, and in the chaos, as everything spun, Jacob realized the keychain was far more than just a key, it was the key to their fate. "What if we don't survive this?" Laura's voice crackled through the swirling maelstrom. "What if we do?" Jacob countered, his heart pounding. Suddenly, the world around them ripped apart, revealing a gaping void, and they were falling into the unknown. With each second, the darkness pressed in, and a chilling thought slithered into Jacob's mind: were they running towards freedom, or straight into the trap that awaited them? As they plummeted into the abyss, the screams intensified, the cries of the lost echoing more clearly, intertwining with their own fading hopes. And just before everything went dark, one final shadow emerged, whispering a foreboding phrase that echoed ominously in Jacob's mind: "Welcome to the truth you cannot escape." Jacob shattered the silence of that all-consuming darkness. He gasped for air, every breath feeling stolen from his lungs. When reality snapped back into focus, he found himself in an empty expanse, the cauldron gone, the shadows dissipated. "Laura!" he called out, panic lacing the edges of his voice. And there she was, emerging from the fog, her eyes wide and searching. Relief flooded him like a tidal wave, but it was quickly shadowed by the memories of the chaos they had just escaped. "We need to talk," Laura said, her voice trembling. "What just happened?" I don't know." Jacob's heart raced. "But we have to figure it out. That keychain, it led us here, or maybe to something worse." They stood on the precipice of understanding, yet it all felt hazy, like a dream half remembered. Jacob glanced down at the keychain still gripped tightly in his hand. The raven's eyes glinted with a peculiar light, urging him on. What if it holds the answers? He mused. Laura studied him, horror and curiosity mingled in her expression. Or could it lead us straight back into danger? But Jacob couldn't turn away, couldn't ignore the pull. "We can't back down now. Not after everything." With a resolute nod, they began walking forward, the landscape shifting around them, revealing glimpses of memories entwined in shadows. Faces of old friends, echoes of laughter faded into chilling whispers. In that moment, he recognized them. Those were the faces of the party, standing beneath the chandeliers, each harboring their own secrets. The keychain in his pocket felt alive with every step, vibrating as if resonating with the energies around them. "It's like it remembers, like it's guiding us," he said softly. "Guiding us to what?" Laura questioned, a mix of fear and intrigue dancing in her eyes. Jacob glanced around, absorbing the oppressive energy that surged through the air. "To the truth." But what truth? Was it only about Ben, or is it bigger than that? He clenched the keychain, determination blooming deep inside him. "Jacob, do you think we can outrun whatever darkness is hunting us?" Laura asked finally, her voice uncertain but steady. He stared into her eyes, filled with fierce resolve. "We have to try. We're stronger than the shadows." As they pressed on, the atmosphere thickened. A shimmering portal opened, revealing an eerily familiar scene, the ballroom, though this time, it felt different. The air crackled with tension, and memories began to flood back. Jacob remembered whispers of betrayal, alliances hidden behind extravagant smiles. "We need to confront them," Laura whispered, fear mingling with a newfound courage. "Before anything else happens." The sight of guests moving around the ballroom sent chill bumps dancing down Jacob's spine. He had seen the faces of deceit and cheer turn sinister in an instant. "Everyone deserves the truth," Jacob said fiercely. They stepped through the shimmering portal, the keychain glowing brighter, a beacon against the encroaching darkness, but as they entered, the laughter and chatter died instantly. Shocked faces turned their way, melding shock with guilt. Jacob's heart raced as he stepped forward. "We know what you've hidden," he shouted, the words igniting a fire deep within him. "Ben is gone. And there's more. Every one of you knows the danger." "Jacob, don't." Laura reached out, but he held firm. "Why did you let him die?" "The raven is watching." His voice electrified the air around them, reverberating in shock. A hush fell. Confession hung in the air, heavy as lead. Those who had laughed and danced, who had once been friends, looked uneasy. "The raven is real," one of the guests finally shouted, pushing through the crowd. It was a young man Jacob barely recognized. "And it demands blood. It feeds on our secrets. Then we expose the secrets," Jacob cried, bolstered by Laura's presence beside him. "No more hiding." The atmosphere shifted, tension thickening as alliances began to unravel. One by one, secrets broke free, spilling into the room like a storm. The veneer of pretense cracked, murmurs of jealousy, sabotage, and hidden agendas layered over one another, a cacophony of fear that resonated in Jacob's bones, and in the chaos, Jacob caught a glimpse of the woman from before, the one who had haunted his thoughts, her face twisted into a mask of rage. "You think you can take control?" she screeched, voice razor-edged. "You can't escape the price of betrayal." But Jacob held his ground, keychain glowing fiercely in his palm. "We're not afraid anymore. You can't control us." With a swift movement, he tossed the keychain into the air. It sparkled, illuminating the room. You're not the only one with power. As it hung in the air, a blinding light erupted, filling the space, merging with the darkness, battling it with a force of unprecedented might. And then silence fell. The lights dimmed, shadows receded, the guests held their breath, faces pale with realization. Jacob stood atop the carpeted floor, hands shaking, heartbeat pulsing in sync with a fragile hope. It's done, he whispered, exhaling relief. We can begin to heal now. Are you ready to face the truth? Laura whispered, stepping beside him, her voice quiet but sure that he nodded. Together. The room was a tapestry of emotional catharsis now. With each heartbeat, they would rebuild, face the memories, face the pain, and that truth was theirs to reclaim. As the dawn crept through the windows, casting a soft glow, it was just the beginning of a long journey toward healing. But they would walk it together, united by the truth that had freed them all, backed by the tremors of the night. Jacob felt stronger. The shadows had been vanquished, the power of the raven turned inside out. Most importantly, he was done hiding, and as the first beams of sunlight broke over the horizon, Jacob knew one thing. He was ready to be more than a millionaire's son, a person ready to fight for his own truth. Now it was your turn. If you loved this wild journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help with the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your voice matters, and you are an essential part of this community.